Hello everyone, this is Jikai from the Enmitsuji Tendai Temple in Sydney, Australia. Today I'd like to introduce you all to an ancient Indian meditation aid, which these days is largely associated with the Tiantai Tendai school. If you've ever been to a Tendai temple, or perhaps if you've researched Tiantai history and thought, you've most likely come across images of the school's Chinese founder, that is Tiantai Dashi Zhiyi. These images will look very similar to the one behind me. Now, when we compare the images of the Chinese founder with the image of the Japanese founder, that is Dengyo Daishi Saicho, we very quickly notice that they're both depicted in fairly similar ways. Both are often meditating, both wear head coverings, and both usually flank the main altar at Tendai temples. So it can be a little bit tricky, if you're a beginner, to distinguish between the two. The only marked difference in their appearance is that the Chinese founder, Tiantai Dashi Zhiyi, will usually be shown with a small object like this on top of his head. So what is it? This object is a practice aid. It's called a Chanzhen in Chinese and a Zenchin in Japanese. So the first character, Chan or Zen, refers to meditation. So you'll be familiar with this in terms such as Zen Buddhism, for example, or Zen meditation. The second character means a weight, something that holds something down. So in English then, we would call a Zenchin a meditation weight. So what does a Zenchin do? Throughout history, Buddhists have developed various methods of ensuring that they don't fall asleep during intensive and lengthy meditation practice. Now, the most common of these devices is perhaps what is sometimes called the disciplinary stick. In Japanese, you'll hear this called a Keisaku or a Kyousaku, depending on the community. Now, this wooden stick is basically carried by a supervisor to the meditation who can administer a short hit to the shoulders or upper back if someone begins to fall asleep. Another even less known aid was called the meditation ball, and was essentially a small ball made of animal hair which fellow meditators would throw at someone who managed to slip off to sleep. It's worth noting that I've never actually seen a meditation ball in real life, and I've never heard of someone actually using it, so we can say with some certainty that this never really took off. Now, both of these aids, however, have something in common. Both of them require a supervisor or a fellow meditator to alert you when you're falling asleep. That means that they cannot be used as aids to keep you awake when you're alone. And this is where the meditation weight, or Zenchin, enters the picture. A meditation weight can be placed on your head, as seen in the depictions of Master Zhiyi, and if you fall asleep, the idea is that they'll fall to the ground, creating noise, which hopefully wakes you up. The two strings that are attached to it will run behind your ear, and so if you slump forward, the strings pull on the ear as it falls to the ground. Now, these two things, the pulling on the ear and the sound of the object falling, are hopefully going to wake you up. So you might be wondering then, where and when did the meditation weight arise? Given that the only occasion where you've probably seen the meditation weight in use is in the depictions of Master Zhiyi, you might have assumed that the meditation weight developed in China, perhaps even within the early Tiantai community. A glance at the Buddhist canon, however, reveals a great deal more than that. First, outside of Zhiyi and later Tiantai Tendai writers mentioning it, few Japanese or Chinese texts speak of the meditation weight at all. What's more, the best descriptions we have of it and its use appear in Vinaya texts. So the Vinaya refers to the Pratimoksha, specifically the ethical code governing the lives and practices of monastics. If we're paying attention, we might consider that all of the primary Vinaya texts are Indian in origin. And so if the meditation weights are discussed in them, we have very good reason to suspect that the early meditation weights were Indian devices rather than East Asian ones. I don't know, however, if some form of the device has survived in Indian religious communities and continues to be used to this day. If anyone else is familiar with an example that's still relevant in Indian religious communities, please let me know. The Vinayas in question, specifically the Dharmaguptaka Vinaya and the Sarvastivadin Vinaya, were both available in Chinese by the 5th century. So we know that that is the latest date for their early usage. So what is the meditation weight made of? How big is it? And what shape is it? Now obviously you can see this example is circular, but when we look at the sources, it's a little bit more complicated. It seems that the construction, size and shape were very likely unfixed. Many of the references to the meditation weight don't discuss these questions at all. In the Chinese Fahua Jing Sambu Buzhu, it tells us that the meditation weight is made of wood, like this one, but that it's shaped like a tablet. Now the tablets in question are usually long strips of wood with rounded edges, which you can still see in Japanese Shinto ritual today. The full excerpt reads, "The meditation weight. It is made of a wooden board and its shape resembles a tablet. Making holes in it, a string is threaded through and hangs over the ear. It is worn on the head 4 finger widths from the forehead." But in a Chinese commentary to the Dharmaguptaka Vinaya, we're told that it's made of bone and that it's either triangular or square and about 3 centimeters in size. The full excerpt reads, "The meditation weight is made of bone. Its shape can be a triangle or a square, and an inch or 3 centimeters roughly in size." In one of the Chinese translations of the Dharmapada, conversely, it is described as being made of white agate, that is a type of stone. The full excerpt reads, "One who sleeps during meditation can wear a piece of white agate atop their head with strings going by the ears. If you sleep, it will fall and wake you up." We also, of course, have the visual record preserved in the multitude of images of Master Zhiyi in Japan since Master Saicho's return in 805 AD, as well, of course, as the physical examples retained in the school like this one. Now these images show a device most likely wooden and circular in shape, but all of this together suggests that the shape, size and construction was perhaps a matter of preference at different times and places. The one constant, however, interestingly, is the attachment of strings. As for the use of the meditation weight in Japan, apart from the visual record, we have the Dengyo Daishi Saicho, or the record of items brought from Taizhou by Saicho, which confirms twice that Great Master Saicho brought the item back to Japan with him in 805 AD. Now, it's probably worth noting that one of the 2 references in Saicho's text to the meditation weight speak of it specifically in relation to Great Master Tiantai Dashi. Now, this may mean that it was not common by this time in other schools, or it may have been a more practical consideration. A small wooden disc, for example, among a cargo of Buddhist items would have looked fairly unassuming, and perhaps this was merely a way to highlight its centrality. In any case, we know that the meditation weight or Zenchin was present in Japan from the time of Master Saicho onwards. Today, it's become quite a rare practice aid, even within the Tendai school. Now, some of the reasons for this are practical. Most Japanese temples will often have multiple practitioners cultivating together, and so it's not always necessary. Another thing worth considering is that unless one is meditating for a lengthy period of time, the chances of falling asleep declines drastically. As modern Japanese society has gotten busier and busier, the likelihood of this item being used at local temples, therefore, has fallen significantly. Now, having said that, the tool's utility as a meditation aid extends beyond its on-label usage. I'll get into that in a moment shortly. If someone engages in intensive shamatha and vipassana meditation, the Zenchin would still be utilized as an important aid. For example, the Tendai school famously has a form of practice known as the Joza Zammai, or the constantly sitting samadhi. In brief, this practice consists of consistent, continued seated meditation for a period of 90 days, with very short, minimal breaks for eating, bathing, and using the lavatory. As you can imagine, this is quite a grueling practice, and in this kind of circumstance, a Zenchin or meditation weight can become one's best friend. The primary sources confirm that it is for use during serious periods of meditation specifically. Of those who use these devices, the Mahavibhasha, for example, states the following. Among men, they repeatedly study the path, and so the path of the noble ones manifests before them. They also frequently read and recite the texts and understand their meaning. From evening until morning, they diligently cultivate the subsidiary practices, and from before sunrise until after sunset, they sit with legs crossed, diligently cultivating the meditations with vigor. Abiding in the caves of the mountains between rocks, they place meditation weights on their crown, use meditation balls and disciplinary sticks. These then are clearly not casual meditators, but serious contemplative practitioners. Great Master Myaula Dashi Janran quotes the same passage from the Mahavibhasha in his own explanation of the meditation weight and its use. The present example of a Zenchin which we use here at Hozenji Temple here in Australia is a version graciously given to us by Hozenji Temple in Yokohama, Japan. It is made of cherry blossom wood and has the Sun Taisei, or the 3 stars emblem of the Tendai school imprinted on the top, with lotus flower petals around the edge. Yokomizo Sensei uses these Zenchin at his temple, and Eishun Sensei from the Shomyoji Tendai Temple in Himeji, Japan, advises that they are also to be found in use at the Tendai Temple of Shoshazan Engyoji, also in Himeji. We are very thankful to the Hozenji Temple for their very kind gift, and we hope to popularize the use of Zenchin in Tendai outside of Japan. Yokomizo Sensei of the Hozenji Temple has a YouTube channel called Choiwaru Osho, also known simply as Howa or Hanashi channel, which has approximately 2,000 videos on various Tendai and Buddhist topics. Eishun Sensei of the Shomyoji Temple also has his own very popular YouTube channel called Soryo Eishun no Sami ni Seppo. I will leave the links to their channels in the description below, so if any of you speak Japanese and are interested in Tendai Buddhism, I highly recommend exploring their channels. Both have videos describing the Zenchin or meditation weight in Japanese, and so although the tool has become rarer, it can still be found in Japan today. As for the Zenchin's use in China, Great Master Zhiyi mentions the meditation weight as a tool for warding off sleepiness in his Shaozhiguan or Shoshikan. This is the smaller calming and contemplation. He repeats the same reasoning in his larger Tsuri Chanmen, and so it's worth looking at the quote here. Due to various reasons such as these, we censure the obscuration of sleepiness. Be vigilant and aware of impermanence. Minimize your sleep, and do not let yourself be smothered in darkness. If the darkness and sleepiness in the mind are severe, you should use a meditation weight or disciplinary stick to drive them away. Now the Tiantai master Yuanjiao also speaks of their use in the 10 and 1100s, and so they were probably used in China during the Middle Ages. He says, the meditation weight is like a tablet. When sitting in meditation, the weight is placed on the crown. You must make holes in it, put a string through and then over the ears. When you fall asleep, it will then fall to the ground. Now I've asked present contacts in China and Taiwan if they have seen them in use today, and at least those I've spoken to suggest that its description is very commonly to be found in most Buddhist dictionaries, but that they haven't actually seen the Zenchin in use. I would love to be proved wrong on this front, however, so please let me know. Now we come to how one actually uses a Zenchin. In order to see how it actually works in practice, it's a good idea for us to look at the best description of its use found in the Sarvastivadana Vinaya. Before looking directly at the Vinaya description, however, one needs to know that Vinaya descriptions usually outline usage by pointing out issues that occurred in said use during the Buddha's lifetime. The Sarvastivadana Vinaya reads as follows. Various bhikshu, regarding the occurrence of sleep during practice, said to each other, the Buddha allowed us to put on a meditation weight, and so it is good. This matter was told to the Buddha, and the Buddha confirmed, I allow you to put on a meditation weight. At that time, the meditation weight did not have holes, and so when worn, it fell to the ground. The monks said to each other, the Buddha allows us to make holes, and so doing so is good. This matter was told to the Buddha, and the Buddha confirmed, "I allow you to make holes. Having made the holes, pass a string through the hole. Have the string extend over the head and over the ears. Going up from the forehead 4 finger widths, put on the meditation weight. However, various bhikshu, by coiling the thread together, place the weight beyond their crown. This matter was told to the Buddha, and the Buddha said, from now on you may not, by coiling the threads together, put on the meditation weight beyond your crown. Those who coil the thread commit a dushkrita or minor offense." Then there was a time when the meditation weight fell due to the occurrence of sleep. This matter was told to the Buddha, and the Buddha said, "If the meditation weight falls once, I allow you to stretch out one leg. If it falls a second time, I allow you to stretch out both legs. If it falls a third time, you should rise and walk about." When they walked about, however, they'd often disturb each other. This matter was told to the Buddha, and the Buddha said, "You ought to walk in orderly rows the way geese do." However, while walking about, the juniors bumped into the seniors' shoulders. This matter was told to the Buddha, and the Buddha responded, "While walking, the juniors are not allowed to bump into the shoulders of the seniors. Juniors must walk behind their seniors and are not to get close to the seniors." First, then, we know that originally the meditation weight did not have holes with string running through it, but that these were added for usage purposes. We also learned that we're not to tie the string or coil it together. My understanding is that by doing this, those naughty monks were keeping the Zenchin from falling off their heads. The strings, as we said, are to go behind the ears. The meditation weight, we also learnt, is supposed to be placed 4 finger widths from the forehead. Now this would be something like so. So top of the forehead, 4 finger widths. I place the Zenchin. I then move the strings behind the ears. So while using the Zenchin, it would look as so. In the Vinaya, the Buddha also made clear what we should do if the meditation weight falls repeatedly due to our sleepiness. When it falls the first time, we stretch out one leg and try to wake up as the blood flows freely again. If it falls a second time, we stretch both legs. And finally, if it falls a third time, we're allowed to get up and walk about. We even have a quite humorous description, as we saw, of walking in well-ordered rows like a flock of geese might. This is, of course, as we read, to make sure that we do not disturb others. In my experience of using the Zenchin or meditation weight, it's a very useful tool for extended periods of meditation. There is absolutely no doubt about that. But it certainly doesn't have to fall and hit the ground to keep you awake. When you use it, you're clearly aware, you can feel that there is something there. And so you're quite aware of your body posture. And so I think this is why even those who don't meditate for particularly lengthy periods of time would probably also benefit from using it. So even if you're sitting for a short period of time, it forces you to be very aware of your body posture. Now, as someone who might be referred to as an experienced meditator perhaps, I've found that the more experienced you get, the easier it becomes to make very small and light movements within meditation which shift weight and posture ever so slightly. These are not really visible to other people watching, and so I think experienced meditators can fall into particularly bad habits in this regard, moving about when they don't need to and so forth. I think this is because when we become experienced meditators, we're no longer really thinking carefully about those small, if you like, micro movements that we're making. So when I use the Zenchin, I'm particularly cognizant of what I'm doing with my body posture. So I would recommend it not only to beginners, but also experienced practitioners. Not only to those who are meditating for particularly long periods of time, but also those who are meditating for short periods. As far as I know, we are the only Western Sangha currently using Zenchin or meditation weights. I'm certainly trying to impress upon our members the value of engaging with these traditional aids. Not only does it connect us with a long tradition, but it's also clearly very practical and easy to make. A particular feature of many Western Sangha and temples, which makes them different from the average Tendai temple in Japan, is that our Sanghas are usually small and decentralized. Many of our members live far from the temple, for example, and cannot always practice with others. And so I think there is a much greater need for us to have items like the Zenchin, which support individual practice, than perhaps there is for our Japanese counterparts today. If something as small as a little disc on your head links you with the best of the best on one hand, and on the other improves your individual practice, then I think we in the West should embrace the Zenchin. I hope this encourages you to create your own Zenchin and use them in your personal meditation practice. Thanks very much.